Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is one of my favorite books, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. Now, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, of course, was made into the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. Now, the movie, of course, is one of my favorite movies as well. Now, this edition of the book I have is the movie tie-in edition, because that, of course, is Jack Nicholson's picture right there on the cover of the book. And this edition of the book also comes with a few photos from the movie right in the middle of the book, like right there, and here are a few other photos from the movie. Now, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was published in 1962, and this is about a man named Randall Patrick McMurphy, who is a convict who, what happens is he starts pretending to be crazy to get out of the work farm because he figures that it'll be easier in a psychiatric hospital than it would be in jail, so he starts pretending to be insane, and what happens is they send him to the psychiatric hospital to evaluate him to see if he really is insane or if he's just faking it. But what happens is when he gets there, he meets all the patients at the hospital, and he meets the head nurse at the ward in the hospital that he goes to, and named Nurse Ratchet, and Nurse Ratchet is essentially the main villain of the book, and let's just say that calling her a bitch would be an understatement. She is she is definitely one of the best villains in books and movies, because if you've seen the movie, you know, you probably remember Nurse Ratchet from the movie. I mean, I've dealt with people like Nurse Ratchet before. I had a college professor who might as well have been the real-life equivalent of Nurse Ratchet, so I know what McMurphy and the other patients were going through when they had to deal with Nurse Ratchet. But the thing about Nurse Ratchet is you do get the idea that she genuinely thinks that she's actually helping these patients, but in a lot of ways, like, she's really, and you don't know if it really is intentional or not, but in a lot of ways, she really is kind of bullying these patients and really kind of making them feel like shit, pretty much. Like, she makes them do things they really don't want to do, and she's really not helping them at all. And what I like about the book is McMurphy, he, in a lot of ways, helps these patients more than any of the doctors and nurses ever would. And McMurphy, throughout the book, he's constantly giving Nurse Ratchet shit, which is really awesome, actually. Throughout the book, they pretty much are, almost like enemies in a way. They really, McMurphy, he constantly fucks with Nurse Ratchet throughout the whole book, and there's actually a really funny scene in the book where, Nurse Ratchet assigns McMurphy to clean a bathroom, and he just goes up to Nurse Ratchet and says, "Oh, thank you, Nurse Ratchet. Now I will think of you every time I scrub a urinal." I'm paraphrasing. He doesn't say it exactly like that, but I'm only paraphrasing a little bit. He does basically say that. But what I mean by he really helps these patients more than any of the doctors and nurses ever would is, there's a scene in the book where, he manages to make it where, they let the patients out, under the supervision of a doctor to go on a fishing trip, and, he also, organizes, a basketball game for the patients to play. In a lot of ways, he really is kind of helping these patients, and, and in the book you realize that a lot of the patients aren't even committed. A lot of them just volunteered to be there, because they felt like they really just don't fit into society. And, and a lot of the book really deals with, society and how, you have to conform to certain norms, and if you're outside what society labels as the norm, you're basically labeled as insane, pretty much. The book is really about that, and, what was I gonna say? Now, one thing that's interesting is the whole book is narrated by a character named Chief Bromden, who is this Native American man who a lot of the characters think is a deaf mute, but, in the book you realize that he's just faking it, and, but what's interesting is, he narrates the whole book, but the character of Chief Bromden is also schizophrenic, so throughout the whole book, like, throughout the whole narration of the book, he's also hallucinating, so a lot of his hallucinations are kind of mixed in with what's supposed to actually be happening in context of the story, so, I could see why that might get confusing for some people. Like, there's a scene in the book, if I remember correctly, where, Chief Bromden hallucinates, where, like, the doctors in the hospital are, like, taking the patients and, like, putting machines in them, and there's actually a lot of machine imagery in the book, which, plays into the whole idea on how society just wants you to conform, and, like, it plays into that whole thing, but, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is just an excellent book. It's an excellent movie as well, even though the movie does change a lot from the book. Both the movie and the book are excellent. This is a great book. I highly recommend it. And what I like about this book is, the book is really a drama, but at the same time, there's a lot of humor in this book as well. Like I mentioned, that scene involving McMurphy and Nurse Ratchet, and there's actually a lot of other really funny scenes in the book as well. But yeah, that's my review on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, and bye.